God is speaking in this moment. As I'm doing my study, I am reading Exodus. And oh my goodness, if you think you know Exodus, go back and reread it, because God is so good. He is so good. The amount of times that the Israelites just completely forgot how good God was, and yet he still blessed them, and yet he still listened. Look, we fail God all the time. We constantly fail people. We fail each other. We fail ourselves. But God doesn't. And when he makes you a promise, he completes it. He is a God of his word. And you can always count on that. And that is so beautiful. I was reading Exodus, and I'm in the Exodus 16 when God sends the manna and the quail, because the Israelites are complaining about how they're hungry. And they weren't really hungry. I mean, they were anticipating starvation, but they weren't experiencing starvation. And that's the difference. They were assuming they were going to starve, because they were forgetting who their God was. They were forgetting everything that God had done and promised. So they started to see that their food supply was getting less and less and less. And they were seeing that they weren't getting closer to what they assumed, or the amount of time they assumed they would be in the desert. So they were assuming they were going to starve, and so they started complaining. How often do we do that? How often do we overthink so much and we start coming up with scenarios in our head? I do this all the time. And I'm like, oh, well, that's going to happen. And I convince myself that that's going to happen, even though it hasn't happened. And I'm focusing over here on my overwhelming scenarios that I'm making up in my head, instead of looking up here and being like, you didn't tell me that, God. You promised me this, and that's what I'm going to stick to. And there's just so much. There's so much. Let me see if I need a part 2 for this.